I'm here in side of Starbucks with Justeen, who I met this summer at the internship for Google. He was working on Waymo, the self-driving project that Google developed and then turned into a project by itself, a company by itself. And now he's here to tell his story of being a designer and how he incorporates coding into it and why he needs coding or whatever. Whatever you want to tell them.
Well, thanks Bianca for inviting me into this event. So let's see where I should start. So I feel like I'm a designer like my whole life. Like I'm born to be a designer. I have that designer trait when I was little even. Because a few interesting things is like I don't have any siblings, so that when my parents are not home or not around, I'll just make my own toy. Well, first of all, that's when the making part begins. I can make things, and then later on, it's not just about making toys, but I see what is wrong with my house, right? Something is broken, or something that I don't feel like it should work that way, or something that I feel like I should add to it, and then I should be doing some. I feel like I should be doing something for it. So I make something that kind of add something to here, add something there, or change something in my house, or things like that. So later on, I found out that that is what we call problem solving. You first identify the problems. Let's say the chair needs to have this thing over there, but it doesn't have it. So I make it, and then I stick to it. So I found the problem of the chair is missing something, and then my way of solving it, my solution is to make that and then attach the chair. It might all sound very abstract, but that's how the problem solving.
Like the chair is moving when you sit on it. The chair is not. It's wobbly.
Well, that's one good example. So if the chair is like not stable, right? Most people do is to fold some piece of papers and then stick it to the bottom of the feet, or a particular foot of the chair, so it's stabilized. So then that is something that you observe, right? The chair is not stable, but the need for that is like people need a stable chair. They don't want a four-legged chair that is kind of moving around the whole time. It feels like unsafe. So the need could stay the same, but the solution could be completely different, right? You could make that piece of paper to stick at the bottom of the feet, or you could design a new chair that the height of the feet could be adjusted, right? In that sense, no matter what surface that your chair is on, you could always stay stable because you could adjust the height of the feet. So that's a bit technical in the sense of what design is. But go back to my story is I try to identify some of the pain points that many times we encounter in life and see what I can do about it. Maybe redesign it, maybe create something new that adds new experience, that adds a better experience, that create convenience to all the people that could share this product. So like, have you ever thought about your shower faucet? That how many times do you have to turn it before it gets to the temperature you want? If it's too hot, you might get burned. If it's too cold, you just keep adjusting. So you're basically doing this million times of trial and error. Million times is exaggeration. Trial and error before you get the temperature you want. So why not just you set the temperature and then it does it for you, right? That simple, it goes like that. So I've been looking at different things in life and see what I can do about them. And one insight I could share with everybody is that to experience life more, to try different things in life, go into different phases in your life. So, because one thing that happened to me was that I don't used to drive. I had my driver's license back in, not too long, but back in 2016, but I didn't start driving like a year after that. But ever since I started driving or owning a car, for example, something new came up because it was a huge parking lot. You park your car somewhere. Many of the cars look just like your car. Silver, a sedan. It's not something fancy, not yellow, not green, not a Tesla.
Not a
And,
Tesla. Okay.
and sometimes you wonder, you have your control, right? Oh, and then you realize when you get to the parking lot, which car is mine, right? You might forget where you parked. You know it's there, but you don't know where exactly that is. And do you just keep trying different cars and see which one beeps, right? That's something that happens. So that is essentially a problem, right? Is apparently why would I have to do this trial and error so many things, just like the shower faucet? I should know where my car is. So how do I know that? So we did a real quick 30-minute exercise on identifying a problem in life and just come up with a simple proposal or concept to solve the problem. So what I did was that you could, it's not the best solution, but it kind of helps solve it. So my solution was to have a, should I disclose too much about my design? So basically, how the design works is a AR app that finds where your car is. You point your camera at the parking lot, it will just match where, when your camera aligns with where the car is, it just pops up a notification saying.
What do you mean aligns with where the car is? What information does it have? Does it see the car through the windows of other cars, or?
No, it involves another piece of hardware.
Okay.
Let's say it might not, it's not the exact implementation, but let's say, with two Bluetooth modules, you could align them, or you could tell where the other one is by signal string. So you could imagine some sort of thing
Okay.
comes into that another piece of hardware that goes inside the car.
But maybe your phone might understand when you parked your car, if it knows the car is moving and then it stops, and then it can detect that you're not moving inside the car, that you're moving, like you've gone outside the car and now you're walking. So maybe it knows where you stopped, and then it can detect where you parked.
Yeah. That is another example of there are many solutions to a need. The need is to find where your car is, to identify where your car is. There are many different ways to do it. So my way is, for my proposal, is simply using AR to find your car.
AR or AI?
AR, augmented reality.
Oh, okay.
Right? 'Cause
It draws the car.
or it somehow highlight the car. Some sort of visual indication of your car is that way.
Okay.
So you head that way to find a car. So that's one example. What was your question again?
I don't remember. What was the question?
How I become a designer. So
Yeah.
so this sort of thing. So owning a car is like a new chapter of my life, each kind of thing. So I discover new problems. So that's why my insight is to just keep trying different things, starting new chapters of your life. So you will observe more, or you will discover more, and that trains you to be a better designer or problem solver in a way. So even for that, I mean, even if you are an engineer, not a designer, ideas comes from encountering problems and things like that. So it could be totally valid to just have a startup idea by experimenting something different, right?
Yeah, identifying
Yeah.
a need.
Yeah.
But when you usually think about design, like a lot of people associate design with drawing stuff, or like using Photoshop to draw stuff, or design specific elements on a website or stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't deny that kind of thoughts. Initially, that's how my perception of design kind of is. I mean, what the majority of people consider or give you ideas that, hey, you should study design, or you should study something related to design because you can draw. That's the connection they made. I mean, it's true to some sense that you need to visually present your idea, right? It's one picture is worth thousands of words. But design is more than just sketching ideas on paper. It involves being empathetic, being able to think about the people that you are designing the products for. So think from their standpoint of what situation that they run into. What is the context that they will be in? What is the environment? What are some of the other objects, some of the other things that go into that environment, and how they will use it, not how I use it, but how they will use it. So for this cup of water, right? Do they hold it like this, or do they hold it like that? That is different, because if you hold it like this, your focus will be on like what the shape of this cup is. What's the curvature? How big that is? And who is your user? Is it elderly people? Is it teenagers? Is it kids? Or are they kids? Are they elderly people? Or if you hold it like this, you need to think about like how sharp this rim is, because this is actually very sharp. This is very sharp.
It's kind of sharp, yeah.
So that if I keep holding like this, my hands will hurt. So,
Or you might drop it and spill the water.
things to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say thinking is more than if you want me to summarize design by one word, it's like it's not sketching, or not drawing, but like thinking. It's the way you think, or care, even like care, because care involves thinking. If you don't think about others, you don't care about other people. Yeah, so care is a thing. So care for design is actually a good thing in the tech industry.
A lot of
Yeah.
people make the differentiation between UX design and graphical design. Like that's the usual. Are you a graphical designer or are you a UX designer? What are your thoughts on this? I thought so far you're talking about UX design, like from what I know, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so a lot of people thought about design as sketching or drawing, mainly because early, I don't want to say not early 90s, but back when what they consider design is more or less, because if you trace back the timeline of design or the medium of design, at the very beginning stage or the very early times is just print, right? Magazines, newspapers, or comic books. All of those mediums are just printed on paper. So drawing or sketching is more essential in that sense when they talk about design, right? That's when like graphic design becomes a thing. Like all the packagings you have. If you talk about pop culture, like Andy Warhol, the pop artist, all the tomato soup cans that he has, he drew those, right? He didn't use Photoshop to did all the work. Did he? I don't think so. Right? I don't think so.
The Campbell soup, are you referring to
Yeah, the Campbell soup, right? Yeah. So all those. That's why people start to make the first connection or impression in that sense. But then as the industry evolves, right, you have the new medium, right? You have print, and then you get to web, and then mobile, and then we start to interact with things digitally. And that's when the UX term, the user experience term, becomes to kick in, because it's no longer just graphic design, no longer how that piece of medium looks. Because if you think about web or smartphones or mobile platform, it started to have more than one page. Has multiple pages. That means the content drastically increases, like by a lot. So how do you get from the first page to the middle of the, well, let's say you have 100 page, that website. How do you get from page 1 to page 50? Like how that navigation process is like. So since you are engaging a product or a product within a certain amount of time, that turns into a experience, because you have been with this product for a while. So you are experiencing the product. So, and the people using it, what we call them users, right? So it becomes user experience. But I personally don't really like the term. I even hate the term to some degree, because user experience actually is a big umbrella. There's so many different categories. They're filming ones like visual design, interaction design, motion design, UX research is a different thing, and then nowadays prototyping is another thing, and each of the categories handles a specific set of materials or components that contribute to that experience.
Okay.
So yes, user experience is still a thing in tech industry. It's still a popular term. I just don't like using it. I rather to be more specific about my domain, because even if you say you're a visual designer, you are by definition implying that you are designing product from a visual standpoint that could enhance the user experience, that could enhance how we use the product, right? Because having an ugly product, ugly interface, and a beautiful interface, of course the beautiful interface has a better experience because it connects you emotionally more in a positive way, right?
What would you describe your job to be like? Which field or
Yeah,
software
mine
field?
is a bit complicated, right? Because I do a mix of things. But at this moment, just this moment, okay, it might change tomorrow completely. So at this moment, I'm calling myself interaction prototyping designer. Okay. Which what I do, it mainly is about designing, defining, exploring how humans could interface with the world, with between objects, interfaces, and systems, and then prototype those experiences through sensors, code, animations. That's why it's interaction, prototyping, and design.
Designer.
Yeah.
Cool. Is it that what you're studying in school also? Since you did an internship, so you're still in school, you're doing a master's.
So I am now in a design school in Pasadena, which is next to Los Angeles, called Art Center College of Design. It's a design school. My program, I'm in the the graduate program called Media Design Practices. So what we do is we try to discover problem. So this is a distinction in not solving problems, but discovering problems that could rise or emerge in the future with emerging technologies. So the technologies that we focus on now are artificial intelligence and immersive computing. So like AR and VR, those kind of things.
Okay. And what does that mean? Like, what are you studying from a AR or VR, augmented reality? How are you studying them? Are you testing them on people and see how they react to it, or?
Yeah, so a bit of background to fill in. My undergrad study was in industrial design and a minor in computer science, which by definition, these two things are really practical, really industry facing, that we are hardcore in solving problems. But in my current program is about discovering problems, which kind of, they don't really align. They're two separate disciplines. So, for example, how we could look into AR or VR in a sense of discovering problem was that we look into what the industry is currently doing in terms of AR and VR development.
Okay.
So a lot of experiences that we observe are solo experiences, right?
What?
Solo experiences.
Solo. Okay.
Like solo demo, like all the. No matter if you are playing with Oculus or HTC Vive, Magic Leap, HoloLens, it's a headset that you wear. Well, maybe less on HoloLens, but most of the VR experiences, they are for one person, very singular. Mm-hmm. You wear it, you experience it. There's no social components in it. But in reality, we deal with different people every day, right? We socialize. We talk to other people, we communicate, we have a social life, a social experience. So one project that we did earlier in the spring this year was to design a VR experience, but socially.
Social with other people in the room or in the game.
Yeah, so the context that we were given was that imagine like body tracking is like perfect.
Okay.
Right? You could track your movement, it knows what you're doing. And the headsets maybe are not required in this scenario. So how can you design a social immersive experience? And what are some possible scenarios that could emerge, which relates to the problem that we're trying to discover. So our team did a project called Motion XR. You could look into it on my website, which is here.
Yeah, we'll put it down
Yeah,
below.
put it down there. So we speculate how the future immersive social experiences are like. So Motion XR, we use motion as a driving force of this virtual experience. So as long as two people are performing the same motion at the same rate, same rhythm, they will be in the same shared VR virtual the shared virtual environment. So for example, you created a virtual environment by doing this motion, okay? On the street, okay? On the street.
On the street, okay.
You just keep doing it, okay?
I'm just keeping it.
And
okay.
then, since I'm not doing it, so I don't know what your virtual environment is. So I could synchronize into your virtual environment by doing the same thing. So once we are synchronized,
Okay.
I will be joining your virtual environment,
Okay.
and then I will see you and what you are doing in that virtual environment, so that this motion-driven experiences is going to take place in public, right? So that there are different scenarios that that could kind of come up, because a lot of people performing like weird gestures or weird body movement in public because of this new computing platform, right? Because of this VR platform. Because nowadays, even if you use your mobile phone, use your iPad, you're not gonna be doing doing this kind of off movements, because there's no need to, there's no point to do it unless your phone requires you to do this, right? So in that,
You calibrate your Google Maps.
that could be something, but you're not gonna be doing that for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So then there will be a lot of interesting movement, kind of rise in that future, and then there will be like people like wandering around the street just to find what are some interesting virtual environment that people created. So they would just be walking around the street and following different people, imitating different people, and see what they're up to. Basically, that's the way they socialize in the VR space. So you see like people kind of what is that term for it?
What?
There's a term for people kind of going
Tailgating.
tailgating.
I don't know.
I will think of it and then I'll get back to
Okay.
you. And then other scenarios will be like, let's say I'm really engaging in her virtual space, but then she stopped the movement. She quit the virtual space, and then I will be. So that means I will also be out of the scene, right? Out of the virtual space, because she's the creator. She owns the scene. If she stop it, if she like exit the virtual space, everything will be gone. So which means I will be transitioned back to the reality, looking at an environment that I might not or I'm not supposed to be in. Let's say I'm heading to the train station, but on the way I saw Bianca doing something interesting, and then I start to imitate. So I'm following her doing this, and then when she stopped, she finished. I found out I'm at the airport. So that's some interesting
But you
scenario.
still have to know where you're going, because otherwise you'll bump into or it's augmented reality. So
Yeah, so in that the premise is assume body tracking is perfect and it also knows environment.
okay, so you don't bump into
yeah,
things.
so the virtual space is built on the physical environment. So that issue is like
Okay,
kind of
okay.
eliminated. Yeah, and another possible scenario is like you could be doing something by yourself without intentionally syncing with other people. But there will be people on the street that are doing similar movement, that performing similar motions, that they attach, well, that they use that motion to create that virtual space. And since you are doing some similar motions, you could by accident sync with that space. So let's say you were trying to want to look at your watch, but this motion, some people might have created their scene like walking by you doing this, and then you have like a flash moment of going into other people's virtual space. And you will be like, wait, what? You might be in a shopping mall, but then in his scene or in her scene, you could be you might have like a space really serene. You see the moon over there, Mars over there. You are in an astronaut outfit, seeing people kind of flying around, and then you will just have a flash of that moment in front of you just by you looking at your watch, and then you will be kind of shocked. Oh, wait, what just happened? And then you realize, oh, you were just intentionally staying with another person. So it could get kind of funny or humorous in a way, but that kind of gets you to the question of what this platform could create in the future and what that could bring you. Is that the future that you want? If it is, how can you push that more? If not, how can you scale back and see at what point you can change the design or to take something else into consideration to make that happen? Yeah.
That's a very interesting example. Imagining all those people. Yeah. I saw that phenomenon with Pokemon Go, sort of. It's an interesting.
Yeah, so Pokemon Go, that is one phenomenon, right? When it just came out, I don't know how crazy is it in the US, but at least in Hong Kong, right? There is a Pokemon. I don't know how much you guys know about Pokemon. But there's one Pokemon called Dragonite, which is a powerful Pokemon that a lot of people want.
It's probably rare, is it?
It's extremely rare. It might just come up like once in a month or in a week or something. So if you search Pokemon Go Dragonite, you'll see a tons of YouTube videos filming a big crowd of people moving one direction, crossing the street together, raiding the park together, and then a ton of people looking down their phone just do this motion. And some are doing that because of reception, for sure. And it was just crazy. And that social phenomenon was brought by this game, right? Brought by this mobile platform that won't exist when you only read newspapers. So new technology would kind of elicit new things, kind of bring new phenomena, new different scenarios that you might not even thought of to the world, and that's just how technology works. But you can totally design it in a way that to shape the future that you want it to be. I don't want to comment whether that crowd of people chasing that Pokemon is a positive or negative thing, but it definitely shows how enthusiastic those people are, how passionate they are about that particular Pokemon, and how much they're willing to. That feels kind of like a cult, right?
Yeah.
You have that people dedicated into a specific topic, and then you just go crazy on it. That's the power of technology. And
It's
also
interesting
design.
to find out about these problems that are actually tackled by design that we never thought about, like designing so that the product is used in the way you want instead of. And this is also for software engineers, because we usually, like when you build an app, you put the button on the right corner because there's space, or that's how I did it. Like there's empty space, like, it fits there. But then how are people going to use it? And it's all sorts of problems that you have to ask yourself. even if you're not a designer.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I feel like developers or programmers or people who coders, they are by nature different from designers. I mean, these are two different areas of things, different occupations. I don't. It's not like one better than the other, but they have different skill sets. They have different expertise, and like Bianca, she's a, how do you call yourself? A programmer?
Software engineer.
Software engineer,
Yeah.
a SWE. You execute things like in an excellent way. You make things, build things. Versus designers, we try to be empathetic. We have gone through a lot of thinkings. We design for people. We run studies. We do testings. We validate designs. We make sure the design that we have is actually bringing convenience to people, simplify process, optimize the way you used to interact with things, and it's just they are just different, right? I can code as well, but I'm not going to be coding the app. I'm going to let she do it because
Because we complete each other. Our
well,
jobs are like.
yeah, right. We complement each other. We have a skill set that it's not like she doesn't have, but I have a skill set that
You've built over time.
I build over time that have more experience than she does. So when I do design, I'm more efficient. I can execute it better. And in her case, she could code a lot faster, a lot more efficiently than I do. So that's something fundamentally different. But at the same time, it's not like these two are mutually exclusive. Because I'm a designer, I don't know how to code. So that when I communicate with her per se, it will be easier, even more efficient because I know what she's doing. I know that syntax. I know you might need to. I know that CSS. You know to get that tag, the CSS, and do the font styling or whatever that is. Because when designers and engineers communicate, at many times it's more than just the concept communication. It's more like at some point you might need to convey something more technical. So if you have that technical knowledge, it's easier for you to work with engineers. That way. Same with engineers, you could totally have designer mind, design thinking. That when you put up the really first prototype, you could have a decent flow that could save a lot of time for a designer to kind of reshape the whole thing. And also, when you, let's say, ask for design specs, you know what you're asking,
Yeah.
right? You want hex code or do you want RGB, right? They're different. Or RGBA, or the alpha channel, it could make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't normally only put buttons there because they fit. So I also like when we started coding WellCode, for example, I was doing the design, kind of because nobody was doing it. We used Bootstrap, so I wasn't really designing that much. But still, like I have to figure out where to put something that I want to enhance. Like I want the users to see first, and then stuff like that. So I think. Do you think you can be both at the same time and still be very good at it, or like do an app that has both?
I would say yes, but I won't say your app will be both excellent, like excellent. Like let's put it this way. So I like Apple products. iPhone is a great phone. The design is great. The UI is great. The industrial design is great. The OS is great. So it basically could let's use iPhone as an example of software engineering and design. Okay. Can you be good at both? Yes, but can you make an iPhone by one person? I would say no. Because when you get to really fine detail, that makes it a factor that separate you from your competitors. Those nuances, all those details, it will take tons of hours to polish, to refine, to get to that level that you want. You can, if you have, that's something that I always have always in mind is like everybody asks me, what would you like to do if you have like unlimited time? In that case, I would say that is possible, because nowadays, given the constraints of time and also the how competitive the industry is, you cannot really make a killer app in both design and software, given that short amount of time. That's why you do need a team to work with to realize your app, because when they get more fine tuned, you need almost the same amount of time to set up the framework for each of the things. So in that sense, it's unlikely that is possible. But to have a decent app, that have a decent design and decent working app, it's totally possible, because I do know a few, I would say, prototypers that they are from Europe. Well, okay, so if you don't know, Europe just has a really good design culture and art design culture, by definition, period. US kind of, Asia kind of, but Europe, all those history, all those famous art. If you think about, this is just a side story. I'm not gonna elaborate on that, but think about it this way: all those old architecture, all those famous artists, architects, painters, sculptures, they originated in Europe, and that's why most of the European software engineers I know, they tend to have better sense of design than software engineers in the US.
What would you say about my sense of design then?
You know better than many of the people I know.
Really? Okay.
And when I was at the Pinterest 2 summers ago, I met a prototyper. Well, he's a software engineer, but he works in a section between, not really in the section. He works on the design team, prototype for the designers, and so that's how I met him first of all. And he also did some like video, like promotional video type of things for Pinterest, like for internally. And on his Instagram, he also did a lot of motion graphics with code. And then I thought he was
in Instagram.
Well, he did it in Xcode
Okay.
with Metal, but he posted on Instagram. That's how I found out about. I was like, how did you make this? Like, because the motion graphic that he made was really organic. It doesn't feel like something you would make with an animation tool. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, and then he was like, "Oh, it's with code, with Metal in Xcode, the Apple coding software." So that, oh yeah, back to him. So I thought the whole time he was a designer, because he has a really nice design sense. His outfit is really designing. His Instagram is super white.
I see.
And then later I found out, oh, he's actually a software engineer, but a prototype for designers. So at that point I was like, that is really amazing that he could get to that level of mastering both design and coding. But not to a degree that you could make an iPhone and by yourself.
An iPhone is
but
not
he is
made
quite
by a
he is quite exceptional. Yeah.
Great, so we talked about what design is, what you think about software in connection to design. Let's talk a bit more about, I think we didn't talk in this video at least, about what you were doing at Waymo.
Okay. Yeah. This is part 2, by the way.
Yeah.
Part 2. Episode 2. Maybe it's the same one, but
It's probably the same
second
one.
half after the commercials. So yeah, last summer I was at Waymo. So Waymo was, it used to be the Google self-driving car projects, which was actually a academic research type of thing, and then it evolves into more of a product. And most of the people, they associate the Google self-driving car was the koala car, the little cute, like a bread-shaped car.
Bread?
Yeah, like a bread. Side view wise, because it's like cruising around some of the streets. But it's no longer the case because ever since that was like about 2014-15, and then Waymo, well, okay, Google, well, Larry Page, the founder of Google, started Alphabet, the company Alphabet, so that they put, well, even before he started Alphabet, the self-driving car project was put into Google X, right? Google X was the moonshot factory where they try to make technology that could change humanity. A few other things like a balloon, a huge balloon that carries a Wi-Fi router to bring internet to areas that does not have internet, or areas that do not have internet, or some areas that have bad receptions, and like use harnessing like wind energy by flying a kite, those kind of things, like really related to really ambitious thing like Wi-Fi with a balloon, clean energy, self-driving cars, things like that. So after Larry Page founded Alphabet, Google X become a company called X Company, and X Company became a child company of Alphabet. And the Google self-driving car project was still in X back then, but until 2017, I believe, the self-driving car project branched out of X and became an independent company called Waymo, which they say is like new ways of mobility, Waymore.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, so yeah, that's a brief history about Waymo. So I was a UX intern. They have a few interns. They have SWE intern, they have hardware intern, they have industrial design interns, which handle like how the car looks, because you really have to like design the housing, the casing for the sensors to make it look seamless that goes onto the car, not like all the exposed electronics and wires on the top of the car. And I'm a UX intern that was in charge of everything else regarding design, just not the hardware side of design. Meaning I was doing a lot of user experience, as we talked about just now, related work. So what does it include? So before I go into that, I need to kind of debrief about what Waymo is doing. So when people thought about Waymo, they thought about that koala car, and they thought that's the car that people later could purchase with Google. And so I own a self-driving car, I don't need to drive anymore. But now it's not the case. Waymo, it has turned into a service that you can request a ride, and then a self-driving car comes to your house, pick you up, and drop you off at your destination. So simply put, you can think of it as Uber Lyft but without a driver. So Waymo is an app. It's a public information. You can look it up. And they also have a passenger, what they call a passenger screen, which is essentially a screen that is in the Waymo vehicle that has a 3D visualization of what the Waymo car sensor sees, or how the car perceives the world, and represented in a three-dimensional way. So you know what you see outside the window is also what the car sensor sees. Okay, so I work on the app, I work on the passenger screen. So like virtually any product they have, I worked on them, which is quite of a productive internship, and get my hands on a lot of projects, which is really nice. And a few things about self-driving cars that I don't know if you'll get into that, but let me just go into that right now. So self-driving car is itself a technology that mixed with a lot of different technologies, right? You have AI that does all the AI that has a computer vision model that recognize things, and you also have the maps that help you navigate, and all those technologies that combine together into this product. But from a design standpoint, how do you make humans or passengers trust this product, trust this piece of technology? Because if you think about back then, before computers, like personal computers, became a thing, like became the ubiquitous enough that every household has a copy, has a computer. They find technology to be intimidating because they're all in this black box, and is most of the time they're sitting far back in a server, and then you don't know what it does, but it does super powerful things, and people are just by nature fear with things that they're not familiar with. So when it comes to self-driving car, this new topic, this new hot big topic, and as Waymo trying to make it a service for consumers, make it a consumer product, consumer service, they really need to take design into account, because essentially people are who will be interacting with this service. People are the core. The self-driving cars are for people. They're not building a self-driving car to drive around by itself. So Waymore doesn't really do like cargos and stuff, but we take passengers, we take humans inside the car. So in order for a passenger to get inside of a self-driving vehicle or self-driving Waymo vehicle, that passenger has to trust the vehicle first, right? So how do you develop that bonding, that connection, that relationship, that trust between human and technology? That's one thing design strive to solve, or try to build that connection. Because technologies are great. Technologies help them make self-driving car happen. But if I don't trust it, I'm not getting into the self-driving car.
Yeah.
I feel scary. I don't care what you are. I just don't get into it. But if I trust it, I will try it, right? Once I try it, my experience is like, oh, it's actually safe, right? It's smooth, it's safe, it's nice. And then I will start to use it. So a lot of this, it becomes designers' responsibility, or more or less their task, to build that trust. So as I was talking about the passenger screen, that give you the 3D visualization of what the sensor sees, that is one thing that could help build this trust. Because if I'm sitting inside a Waymo vehicle, I look outside the window, I see this car here, this car over there, this passenger there, and on the screen I also see where my car is. Another car's on my right, another car's in the front, another pedestrian is in the front. I could build this connection that, oh, the self-driving car actually sees what I see. There's virtually no difference. And a self-driving car might even pick up more other information that human eyes could ignore or didn't even notice. So that's a big thing. Yeah, that's one example.
As opposed to just sitting in a car and not knowing how it's working. If you see what the car is seeing, it's, as you know, building a lot more trust.
Yeah, because especially when technology is taking control, especially like what Elon Musk was talking lately about AI that's kind of destroying humanity. Like, it's just the fear that we have towards technology, that we don't know what it's doing, right? By showing the process, by showing the logic behind technology, it grants our understanding, our minds to get into understanding, oh, that is what it's doing. And it's really similar to what I do. So that when that connection start to kind of surface up, and then I will know, oh, I can trust it, at least for now. So yeah, even so, another insight for everybody is like, when you are interacting with this kind of emerging technology, this kind of super powerful technologies, just put a little thoughts on what do you think human will interact with it, and what would the initial reaction be if, let's say, the Google autocomplete email. Because in Gmail now they have something called smart reply or something like that. It used to be just like a few of different texts that you choose from, and then you pick like, okay, thanks, see you soon. Those really simple ones that, of course, AI was behind it. And now when you are composing an email, when you're typing, you start to suggest. When you type TOM, it starts to finish tomorrow and a question mark for you. If you hit tab, it auto complete. So this kind of AI email, when it gets to a point that if you have an idea, let's say 5 years from now, you want to say, I want to email Bianca about coming to Houston. I would just say Bianca Houston 2 weeks from now. Just these keywords to Gmail, and Gmail could understand what I could guess what I was trying to compose the email. He would draft the email for me and would use the tone that I used to use. So at that point, will you trust Gmail to do it for you? That's the question. That's one question.
That's a question for you because I would trust it, but
Second question is, if you don't, anything that you can do to make it trust you. So for that question, that's when design comes into play. Like I was just said, showing the process, showing the progress of how that AI composed the email. They must have some logic behind it. It's not like from nothing, just, oh, bam, this is the email. There will be a logic behind it. But so if the AI shows that, I'm guessing that you are going to Houston because you also bought a ticket for the Taylor Swift concert in Houston and blah blah blah, and somehow you two met at Google, and they try to sort this logic out for the person who is sitting behind the computer or in front of the computer, so that I will understand, oh, it's actually really close aligned with my thoughts, my way of thinking, and then I could just let the AI to do it. So just a little more thinking about, a little more care about who's using it, how would they use it when engineers code, you will slowly develop the sense of what design is, and then you get a feel for how you, let's say, produce a product, I'll say.
yeah, great tips. Just something to be aware of whenever you're building products. Do you have something else to add for the viewers regarding your experience?
Yeah, another insight I could tell is that you mentioned that a lot of your audience are the ones that they try to learn coding, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't know anything about coding.
Maybe they don't. Some of them do. Some of them don't. It's different. Like I think we have a diverse audience. That's why I thought maybe they would also like to go into design, or even if they don't go into design, hear about how design is incorporated in their products that they're building.
Yeah, so another insight I could give to people who just started coding, well, because before my undergrad, I didn't know how to code. I didn't think about coding. Because when I was in high school, I thought computer science was ones and zeros, right? Binary, right? I was not wrong, but I was not right completely. That's why I didn't know about computer science as well. That's why I didn't choose computer science as my major. But until I went to my university, that we have, like, everybody has to take a computer science course, and that's my first time like touching code and trying to experiment with it. And suddenly I just realized like how ubiquitous computer science is. It's like everywhere. All the control that you see in the world, like it's in traffic light, it's in some of the light controls, it's in your car, it's in your computer. Wow, of course, in your phone, it's on airplane, air traffic control, like everywhere that you can. Almost everywhere you go, you see like how computer science like contribute to it. So then it was also coincidence-ish that I have to make a website. Well, since every designer has to have a website as his portfolio, so I don't want to just make a website and just put up pictures of my work and use like WordPress templates or Squarespace, because those they have really nice templates that looks elegant, looks nice because they're designed by designers. But I feel like since I'm a designer myself, I feel like I should have like total creative control of what I produce, even it's my portfolio. So since I picked up coding, so I was like, hey, why not just code my website from scratch? That will be an excellent piece of work, both from a design standpoint and also a computer science or coding execution standpoint, because I could have an idea, which was a design, and also execute on the top of that. So that I started to learn about more and more about HTML, CSS to put up my very first rough draft of my website, and just keep learning more and more, get into JavaScript, get into using API. Maybe I didn't get into using API, but at least JavaScript, that kind of really push how people could interact with a website, a lot of interactivity that goes into it, from a hover state to a click state, or animation of elements moving on your website, and how I could make my website more delightful and intentional and meaningful in a way that my audience could, once they get into it, it was like, oh, it's actually a fun website to kind of just browse around or even just for information. So on my homepage, which is here as well,
In the description.
in the description too, which the homepage, which what I call it a playground. I call it a playground on purpose, because I was imagining that page, that landing page, is the page that everybody could like have some fun, play and discover, just like when you were young, when you were little, like as a kid, playing the playground, go onto a slide, go onto a swing, and those little fun moments that you have. I want to bring that sense of that delightfulness, or that delight, that's the smiles that you have, that interactivity, that fun aspect back to my landing page. And I also like to have things in a more subtle way. And of course, at some point, I need to be bold and apparent and upfront of what I'm doing, what's my intention. But in this case, a landing page, it could go a little gamey-ish. So I designed a game, a mini game that acts like an Easter egg hunt. So you could go onto it and maybe click around, just move your cursor around. You might see some interesting things happening, and then you will find out that there's actually a game that kind of hidden behind it. It was a fun 2-day project, a lot of technical difficulties that goes into making this game, and it's all in JavaScript from scratch. No framework, no library, no nothing. Maybe jQuery, if the library. But it's all handmade, and it's quite nice. And some people refer that as creative coding, like using coding as a way to make some games, artistic expressions, and those kind of things, which is also another area or industry or job that you can go in, that your audience could go into. Just keep your eyes open onto different opportunities in terms of how software engineer is not just coding behind a screen, making a technology, but also could be a consumer product, could be an art installation, could be an interactive experience, and a lot of different stuff.
Great, thank you for the valuable insight and tips. A lot of us didn't know before what design is, so I'm very glad that you got to speak to our viewers. Again, you'll find his link in the description below, and if you want to go into design or are thinking of doing something creative, let us know in the comments what you're planning to do. And if you like this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe. I'm not sure where the buttons are, but
yeah, like and subscribe. Make sure you hit the little bell so that you'll be the first one who get a notification when she has new videos posted up.
yeah, exactly. It'll be fun. We hope you'll enjoy all the content that we're gonna release in the following weeks, days, whatever. We have some great people on the channel who have other kind of experiences that you'd maybe like to check out. And until next time, see you, bye.
See ya.